meeting of the County Board of Supervisors to order at this time. And please rise for the invocation. Pastor Ted Marsh will be issuing it today.
All right, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Paul and Cindy Campbell for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity to pray over you fine folks. My phone's ringing. I also need to apologize because I have a meeting at 5:30, so I'm going to have to give a scoot buck, as they say in Rotary. If any of you are Rotary members, you have to pay to leave and pay to come and go, and you know. So, all right. So let's see. I do consider it an honor to carry the Word of God to all that I meet and to those that will listen. The Bible says that he who has an ear, let him hear. In King James, it says there are many plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's counsel that will stand. So I'm going to say a short and powerful prayer, because I know you guys are not here to have church, right? Although you still honor the Lord because you have allowed myself and others like me to come in and give these invocations. I believe you are here to carry out God's will in this county and state and country if you will listen to his counsel. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I pray for the hearts of these leaders that they would be open to hear your voice. I pray that you would establish their steps. I pray that they would seek you for advice. Help them not make decisions based upon their own knowledge, but based upon your wisdom. Lord, guide them. I place this meeting in your hands. I place their hearts and minds in your hands so that you may direct them. I also pray for their families, that you would keep them safe in times of persecution, and that your angels would be around about them to protect them. I pray that you would draw all men unto you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll have roll call at this time. Okay, roll call is complete. Thank you. And next will be public comment. We'll allow 2 minutes for public comment today. And the first I have requesting is Carol Ivans.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, my name's Carol Ivans. I live at 613 Noah Drive. And I'd just like to say we're still waiting for you to cite even one piece of scientific evidence for the anti-COVID strategies in place in St. Croix County. I realize this is more the HHS specialty, but because we get no response from anyone, this drum needs to be beaten as often as possible. Parroting the CDC or Fauci or any other government organization or head doesn't cut it. Repeating a lie certainly seems to make people believe it, but it doesn't suddenly morph into the truth by virtue of repetition. Galileo didn't just say the earth revolved around the sun and get everyone to repeat it. He had evidence, which the scientific community eventually actually looked at. All we want is for you to go and look for any credible evidence for your position and good reasons to encourage masks and vaccines. If you can find any, we'd love to see it, because we have looked at piles of actual science, which I'll be sending you, that not only proves masks are worthless against viruses, but that they're actually harmful, especially to children. Same with the shot. Have you heard of Dr. Mengele? Would you listen to him or trust his advice? Having the title of doctor or scientist or whatever doesn't make a person trustworthy. And we have too many of them running things in the world today, not just the US. For your own sake and your families, start looking at all the facts, not just what you hear on CNN or from the experts or the World Health Organization or anyone else. And please don't try to play the numbers game that HHS loves to play. I've already explained how deceitful that is. Please let us know what you find. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, which is of, for, and by the people. I'm sorry, but the direction you're taking us in the false name of health is not for the people. Please fix this. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to make public comment at this time? Anybody else? Okay, Bill Rubin, did you wish to speak?
Good afternoon. As Chair said, my name is Bill Rubin, and I serve as the Executive Director of St. Croix Economic Development Corporation. It's an IRS-designated business league organization serving business and industry sectors in St. Croix County. The treats over at the table in the small box, compliments of the EDC. They were manufactured by a commercial baker who took raw materials earlier today and created a value-added product. The company is called Holy Donuts, and it operates out of a regional business innovation center in River Falls. Last Friday, October 1st, marked the start of a month-long celebration called Manufacturing Month. It's designed to pay tribute to companies that actually make or produce something and to bring attention to their important contributions starting locally. Holy Donuts is a manufacturer, but so is the distiller, the brewer, the metal fabricator, the material scientist, the micro molder, and so on. They all have an important role. I have some statistics to share. Manufacturing is Wisconsin's top business sector, producing in excess of $65 billion with a B, billion dollars in total output, or almost 20% of the state's gross domestic product. Wisconsin's manufacturing sector boasts 8,000 plus business incorporations. 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 workers in the state are employed by manufacturers, bringing the total number employed to around 475,000 associates. Many manufacturers serve markets outside the region or state, and so therefore they're probably better known outside the local area or the region or the state than they are across the globe. In fact, nearly 20 billion, again with the B, dollars of manufactured goods in Wisconsin are exported. Meanwhile, due to labor shortages, over 2 million manufacturing jobs will likely go unfilled across the country by the year 2030. St. Croix's manufacturing stats are harder to locate, but they closely parallel the state's numbers. As a wrap-up, keep in mind the manufacturers in your respective communities. Keep it top of mind this month and every month. Their owners are risk takers, but they would deny that. They make important contributions, starting with employment opportunities, as well as provide contributions to the tax base, and they manufacture products that improve our way of lives. Enjoy the Holy Donuts, and thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, I'll close public comment at this time. We'll proceed with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda? Okay, we don't need a second, do we? Okay, second on that, Supervisor Counter, and we'll vote at this time. Carries, thank you. Presentations or recognitions. Next will be West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission presentation. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to participate in your meeting this afternoon. My name is Lynn Nelson, and I am the Executive Director of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And I'd like to take just a few moments of your time this afternoon to provide you with an annual update on the work that the Regional Planning Commission has been providing to St. Croix County. My goal in making sure that you have this information is that you can walk away with an understanding of our organization and the types of services that we offer, if you don't already know that, and how we can continue to best partner moving forward. Make you aware of our services so when you have questions or projects that you give us a call moving forward. Before I jump in, I want to point out that there is a packet of information at each of your spots. It includes the 2020 annual report for the Regional Planning Commission, the same for the Regional Business Fund, which is a nonprofit business finance organization that the Regional Planning Commission staffs. And then there's also another one-page flyer on the Main Street Bounce Back program, which is a program that we're currently administering, and I'll talk a little bit about that as part of my presentation. Also, we have our business cards in there, so if you have questions or want to talk about any projects, please reach out after the meeting at any time, and we're always happy to talk about projects with you. You can see that Toby Lemahue's name is on the screen. She was going to attend with me, but the last minute couldn't make it, so I'm going to cover her part. So if there's any issues in that area with business finance, I'm just going to blame it on her for not being here. So I'll do my best through that. So I'll go through this rather quickly as I know you have a full agenda, but a quick review. The Regional Planning Commission is a planning and technical assistance agency that was created in 1971 under state statute. We're one of 9 regional planning commissions covering the state, represented by number 9 on the screen. We cover 7 counties in west central Wisconsin, inclusive of St. Croix County. We are governed by a 21-member board or commission, which is composed of 3 members that are appointed by each of our 7 counties. Here's what that composition looks like. You probably recognize the names from St. Croix County. Two members are from this group, Supervisor Achterhoff and Hansen, so we thank them both for their service to our organization. We currently have a staff of 14. Over the years, that number has grown slightly, and that's been in response to the demands that we're seeing in the region. And that's a good thing for St. Croix County, because as we've grown, the amount of expertise and the staffing assistance that's available has increased for your county as well. The goal of our organization is to assist units of government in planning for the physical, social, and economic development needs of the region. And we do that by providing services in 4 areas: economic development, transportation, community development, and then conservation and mapping. Our activities can roughly be divided into work that we do with units of government, counties, cities, villages, and towns, and nonprofits as well, and then also businesses. So this screen gives you an example of some of the ways that we've worked with units of government in St. Croix County over the past year. We've really done a lot of work on collecting information on resources that are out there for units of government to respond to the pandemic. We have those guides available. We do a lot of outreach to make sure that that information is known. We've also worked with the county on a FEMA application for a safe room at the fairgrounds, City of Hudson with transit services, St. Croix County with transit services, and a variety of other things. But one of the other things that has been especially important in response to the pandemic has been assistance that we have helped to provide to businesses. So I'm going to talk about 4 different program areas that we've worked in that have really tried to help businesses respond and recover in light of the pandemic. The first one is, as you're aware, St. Croix County set up a loan pool, and we helped to administer that loan pool for business assistance. It was available from July 14th through September 10th for small businesses for up to $10,000 at 0% interest. There were 29 businesses that took advantage of that program for a total of $290,000. So we help to process that paperwork at the time of application, and we continue to help pull payments and do reporting for that program for St. Croix County as well. A second program that we've worked with is the state of Wisconsin's Department of Administration had community development block grant money available to assist small businesses with less than five or fewer employees that were income eligible through $5,000 grants. And so for that program, we ended up receiving a total of 179 applications region-wide. And you can see that St. Croix County was very well represented in that pool of businesses that applied for that money with a total of 40 applications. So that money, all of those applications have currently been processed. We've requested the money from the state, and we're just waiting to receive that so we can write those $5,000 checks to all the businesses soon, hopefully. The third program is the one that you have a flyer about in your packet, and this is a program that we're currently administering. And it's called the Main Street Bounce Back Program. It's through the Wisconsin Economic Development Administration. They initially provided us with $1.5 million to make $10,000 grants available to any business that's expanding or starting up and moving into vacant commercial space. The name is a little bit deceiving because the location doesn't necessarily have to be in a downtown or on a main street. It can really be anywhere. And so we're working on marketing that program right now. Here's a few of the details, but we have an executive committee meeting on Thursday, and at that meeting, following that meeting, we'll have approved 140 applications. So we're almost all the way through that $1.5 million that we were initially given. However, we're being told that we can receive another $1.5 million to assist businesses. So if you know of businesses that could use that type of assistance, please share the information with them. We're still taking applications, and we will continue to do so through the second half of that $1.5 million. And then the final thing that I would touch on is our ongoing work with the Regional Business Fund. The Regional Business Fund is a nonprofit regional organization that provides financing to businesses in a wide variety of categories: gap financing, facade loans, growth loans, a whole variety of things as shown on the screen. In 2020, you can see here some of the businesses that received that type of assistance and benefited from the services that were provided through the Regional Business Fund. Again, we staff that entity and are the ones that are out on the ground, in addition to working with your county economic development corporations closely in marketing these programs. Here's some businesses that have received that same type of assistance in 2021. So that's a really quick update on some of the things that we're working on. We really value our partnership with St. Croix County and look forward to doing many more projects with you in the future.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item then will be the financial reports, administrator's report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Peterson. The financial report is in the packet. When I reviewed the report, I think everything was right on target for where I thought it would be for August of the year. Sales tax revenues continue to be strong for us. And when we look at the KIP project, which I think is the fourth or fifth page in there, you can see that we're starting to close out some of those projects as we're starting to finalize some of the KIP projects for the year. Other than that, I would entertain any questions that you might have on the financial report. And I'll just add then, I did put on your desk the budget books. So that's the county administrator recommended budget for 2022. We'll have a committee of the whole meeting next Monday morning to review that. And that book is also available online for anyone that wants to go to that packet. It's out there already.
Okay, no questions or comments? Thank you, Ken. We'll proceed on then to the business items. The first item would be a resolution supporting the Wisconsin DNR surface water grant application. Do I have a motion for that to the floor? Yep. Second by Supervisor Hall. And discussion? Supervisor Burning.
The 30% that we're responsible for, is that already assumed in the budget?
Is it already in the budget, Ellen? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? Guess we're ready to vote. Carries, thank you. Next is a resolution to charge back municipalities due to illegal real estate taxes. Do I have a motion on that? Supervisor Long? Second? Supervisor Counter, thank you. Discussion, comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Carries unanimously, thank you. Next is a resolution amending 2021 budget for CT scanner CIP project, and do I have a motion for that?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the amended budget for the CT scanner.
Supervisor Ard has a motion, second. Supervisor Cook. Discussion? Supervisor Altino.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet on my sheet here, but I noticed that here it is, the CT scanner was refurbished, and I'm kind of wondering about why would we want to buy a reconditioned CT scanner? Is that really, really out of line to get a new one? How much out of line?
So the CT scanners are, they're set up for live people. So they're only good for so many live folks to run through and do a scan. And then they refurbish them for decedents. So the calibration is a little bit lower. So it's actually a good financial thing for us. And when you think about the CT scanner, just think about the fact that we're going to be going from human dissection to scanning. That is less traumatic for families. It is less traumatic for staff. It is less traumatic for law enforcement. I can tell you that myself and law enforcement have sat in on autopsies at Ramsey County where we have had 6 bodies behind us watching human dissection. And when you think about this, just think, unexpected death happens all the time. And if it isn't necessary, what would you want for your loved one? A less traumatic or human dissection? So that's kind of where we are.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Burning.
Operationally, do we have the personnel that's required for this?
Yes, the scan takes 25 seconds.
Okay,
And we will all be trained ourselves, so we will be scanning our own folks.
And then how about our talk with other counties? How's that coming along?
Really well. They're
Okay.
waiting. Pierce County and Sancri and Polk County are both just waiting to see what happens and looking to work on regionalization. So I think it's really exciting that we have some really good opportunities to do regionalization.
And we're going to be able to shift that revenue that we're currently sending over to the cities and western Wisconsin to here then?
Yes,
And we have the personnel to handle,
yes.
okay.
Supervisor Telejohn.
I noticed delivery is for Hudson. is it going to be delivered to Hudson or out in Richmond?
It's going to be at the DD building in,
But the quote was for delivery to Hudson.
yeah, they've been there. They've been there. They know where the building is.
Okay.
The company flew out from
I just hope they don't have to
Philadelphia.
transport from Hudson to Richmond.
No,
Other questions or comments? Supervisor Achterhoff?
Yeah, how many years is this gonna be good for? I mean, I noticed the maintenance fee is hefty.
so the maintenance fee is kind of like, with any type of technology, there is a maintenance fee. It's good for 3,000 scans. So for us, pretty much all of us will go through it at once. We'll probably all get through the scanner, get that. We'll outlive it.
And at 3,000, can they refurbish it again, or it's done?
So I've been talking with health partners, and my goal is that we work with health partners to then utilize partnerships with their refurbished, outdated CT machines. So we have a very robust discussion going on between health partners, Alina, and also Western Wisconsin Health. So these all have their own, and it will actually assist with their emergency room deaths also. So this is a benefit to all of our local hospitals.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll vote. This is going to require a 13-vote supermajority to pass. Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, a resolution authorizing fund balance transfer. And Supervisor Long has a motion. And a second by Supervisor Ard. Discussion? Seeing none, I guess we're ready to vote.
Hang on a second, my battery fell out. As best as I can see.
Carries unanimous. Thank you. Next is a resolution approving the 22 to 26 capital improvement plan and providing for the 2022 CIP funding. Do I have a motion for that to the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the 2022 capital improvement plan and providing 2022 KIP funding.
Second by Supervisor Osnes. Discussion? Supervisor Long.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple comments. I've been looking at this and thinking about it for quite some time. And there's one project that I just wanted to bring to the floor. It happens to be 10074 in the parks, regarding the Glen Hills group camping. This is 1.1 million, and there's a grant for 250, so that's out about 850 in our KIP. And I guess kind of comes down to this needs, wants kind of thing in our own budget. You know, we have to take care of the needs and the things that we have to take care of, but there's also projects that are kind of the nice to have, and you do them when you think you can afford them. And we're just coming out of this lovely pandemic, and I think we've got a little ways to go yet. And there is, at least in my mind, a certain degree of uncertainty with what we might be faced with next year. So I think it might be fiscally prudent for us to just put this project off for a year. And I'm by no means suggesting that it's not worthwhile, because I think it is. And I support the project, but I think it might be in our best interest if we just held off for a year, put it in 2023 instead of 2022, just gives us a little more flexibility based on what we might run into next year. And it just made sense to me to just to hold off. So I would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, like to move to amend the capital improvement plan to change the project 10074 simply from 2022 to 2023.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to move the item 10074. Go ahead, Supervisor Burning.
I don't know if we procedurally move it to 2023, or do we have to move it off of this budget?
No, it can be moved to 2023. So what this resolution is doing is it is looking at the 5-year plan, but it's also funding 2022. So with the amendment, my understanding would be is that we would move that out of 23, and the funding for 2022 would be adjusted by the appropriate dollar amount. I would have one question that I would want to check with our Community Development Director about the timing of the grant before you guys voted on it. So that's the one question that I would have.
Okay, I have the motion. Do I have a second to that motion for now, before we get on discussion? Supervisor Burning. Okay, discussion now, and Ken, you wanted a question from Community Development?
Yeah, if the Community Development Director could address the timing of the grant. I'm not familiar with the grant timing, because we have been awarded that grant. I just don't know what the expenditure period is for that. So if Ellen could confirm that for us.
I was just trying to look it up really
Yeah.
fast. We have been awarded it as of 2020. We were awarded it. So let me just check here. Grants. There it is. When you're looking for something really fast, you can never find it, 'cause your eyes go right past it. Okay.
Supervisor,
In
while
your
you're looking
presentation,
there, Supervisor Long, did you have a comment?
Well, I think in your, I thought I noticed in your presentation for later in our agenda that particular grant was listed as 22-23.
It probably is then. It was awarded in 2020, and it just depends on what date they put on it. I'm looking that up.
Supervisor Hall, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have a quick question for Community Development. I'm educable, but slowly. I have a question, Mr. Chair, for the supervisor, or for the county development agent.
Go ahead.
What particularly were we going to be using this $250,000 for in terms of the work to be done? Is that for infrastructure, leveling, grading, that sort of thing, or where's the money to go?
It would go towards the full project. The project is to move our existing group camp from where it is across the road to the north, slightly north west. And that the project is obviously earth moving, putting in a driveway, putting in campground sites, putting in support facilities, restrooms, electric, all that kind of stuff. There was nothing specifically identified separate in the overall project for the $250,000.
May I continue with my question? So then, I'm curious, I would assume with COVID, we've seen an uptick in the usage of the parks.
Significantly, yes.
And so, you know, I understand the concern about being fiscally prudent here as well, but we have a grant in hand. We've already budgeted the money and agreed as a community, as a board earlier, that it was worthwhile. I'm wondering, you know, I'm asking, is there a cost to delaying in terms of providing services that we could be providing in the short term and increase construction costs down the line if we push this off?
Certainly there could be. Obviously, this year we've seen a really rapid increase in property values, home values, and construction costs. We've heard a lot about that. They could be, you know, some people have suggested maybe they're going down, but we also know there's a supply chain issue. We would put this out for bid. One of the things we've been doing is completing construction documents for bidding. And we would put this out for bid once it was approved. If the bids came in high, we have a couple of things that we built into the project that could be cut back to make sure that we would meet the funding. But there isn't like where you could cut it down to half, that kind of thing. Unless, of course, the bids came in really, really low, then that would make a big difference. But I don't have any clue what the bidding will come in at, of course. It's a very volatile situation that way. And I did find it, the grant is awarded from November 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. So that would mean if you put it off till next year, then we would have basically to get an extension, which we probably could get through to do construction in spring, summer of 2023. Just depends.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for me as long as I'm here?
Supervisor Osnes?
You may have just touched on it, and my question was, what are the possibilities to extend the grant?
Usually you can get 1 6-month extension, and sometimes a year. It depends on what type of grant. These grants, I can look for that. I can't say for sure. It's not in the paperwork I'm looking at. I'd have to contact the DNR Stewardship Office.
So if we don't use it on a certain date, technically we could reapply if we couldn't get an extension, or how does that work?
Absolutely, you could start over and reapply. Applications are due May 1 of every year. If you don't take a grant from the DNR, well, it's very hard to get the next grant. You usually have to wait a while.
Supervisor Ard?
There we go. Will the current group camping area, that will still be functional during this construction phase?
Yes, it will. That was part of the plan.
So we're not losing any revenue or the ability to host groups within the camp area. It's not going, it wouldn't be the group camping area wouldn't be impacted if this project were pushed another year.
Not the way it currently functions, no. But the point of the improvement is, like the group camp area, just like all of Glen Hills, was built over 50 years ago. And it doesn't meet current expectations. Of all the different camping areas at Glen Hills, that is the least used. It doesn't have electrical hookup. It doesn't have very much shade the way it's laid out. This would be changing that completely. We would have shaded camper sites. We would have a little more laid out better, so there's a little more privacy. We would have electrical service for all of the campsites. They would be designed in a more modern way so that we also could see, which we do right now. If no group rents them, then right now we open them up to individuals who want to rent, and we don't get, like I said, we even have tent campsites that are doing way, way better than this area. So.
Supervisor Achterhoff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to postpone it because the parks have been used tremendously. There was I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, over 60,000 people use the parks in St. Croix County. And some of them are in pretty bad shape because the parks are always the last thing because they're not required. And this is in the budget. We approved it. We moved $3 million into the KIP from the ARPA. Did I get that right?
2.3 million from ARPA.
2.3 million, okay,
and
so
3
we
million
moved a
from-
lot more into the KIP. This was approved. We need to keep our parks updated if we want people to keep coming to them and spending money and time in St. Croix County. It's so easy to say, put it off, put it off, put it off. At some point, you have to say, okay, the buck stops here. We have to take care of what we have. And this is one way of taking care of it. And like I said, with an extra $2+ million in the KIP, we have the money. And we have extra money in case something would happen.
Further questions, comments? Supervisor Altino.
Yes, as I mentioned during the meeting when we were doling out this money, I'm still against, when you look at it, 1.1 million, then you got another 1.6 million in the same park, and then followed that up by an upgrade of another $800,000. You know what, I agree with the parks. We should have them, we should upgrade them, but not at the tune of this kind of money.
Supervisor Hall.
You know, I guess one of the things that was clear to me as we went through our community input exercise was that our parks are really the gems of St. Croix County. They draw people, they expose people to what we are and what we can be, and I can't help but think they don't have a knock-on effect for people making a choice to move here or move their businesses here potentially as well. Truly, it is a resource. If it's one that we don't take care of, we'll slowly lose it. And then I'm all about the fact that it will help the eastern part of the county with some much-needed economic activity. So I'm in favor of proceeding and leaving this in, personally.
Supervisor Hanson.
Before, and I don't know the exact date, but I got elected in 2014, and the park, Glen Hills Park was just in the process of being improved, and there for many years, decades, there had been no improvement. There were pit toilets that were already 50 years old, and there was a lot of history in there. It was just not taken care of, and what we're really doing is catching up. So it's a lot of money, but it hasn't been getting $1 million every 10 years. It's been getting nothing. And really, it was pretty ratty. When I first started taking my grandkids there when they were little, 10 years ago, it was pretty rugged. And now we have some nicer amenities, but the things that we're planning to do now isn't just for this year, it's for the next 30 years. We're building this park back up so that it can be a resource to hope to anchor the recreation and tourism in the eastern part of our county for the next 25, 30 years. We're not building something just for now, and we're not throwing money at this every couple years. It doesn't take this to maintain it. We're rebuilding. We're restoring this park because it was abandoned pretty much for a long time. And this is necessary to bring it back to what it needs to be. So I'm not in favor of putting it off, although I understand and respect the sentiment. I think we should do it.
Supervisor Altino.
Thank you. Maybe I need better clarification of what the 1.6 million portion is that's on the KIP, because it says 9, the way I understood it when we voted on it originally was it was 9 camper cabins with electricity, wells and pits. And am I correct, that was the only thing that you're gaining? You're not moving parks, camper sites, anything. It was the 9 camper cabin sites. Is that a correct statement?
The next years, or in 2 years, that project, yeah, but that is opening up an area of the park that has just been woods so that involves a lot of running power, going in, drilling wells, cutting down trees, creating driveways, creating parking spaces, adding facilities. It involves a lot of work, a lot of effort and construction. Is that
So I
answer your
was
question?
correct, then you're only going to gain 9 camper cabin sites for $1.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Long?
Real quick, I don't think the question is whether or not the project is worthwhile. I really do believe it is. But when you say we have the money, I also want to draw your attention to, I believe it's page 60 in your packet, capital budget, fiscal year 24, 25, and 26. And you'll see some significant negative numbers there in our capital plan. So all I'm suggesting is let's wait a year and let's see how the dust settles and make sure that we can do it next year.
I think the arguments probably have been made, and we'll vote at this time. First on the resolution, or the motion to move item 10074 back 1 year. So we'll vote at this time. Okay, it fails by 6 yes and 11 no's. Supervisor Burning? Okay. So now we would move on back to the main motion. Supervisor Hanson?
Mr. Chair, I also have an amendment. I would move to amend the CIP capital improvement plan by removing from it the $87 million building project and waiting to vote on that as a separate entity. The reason for that is we haven't heard the presentation from the building committee. We haven't had a major building plan included in the capital improvement plan. We built the transportation program independent from the capital improvement plan. If we leave this here, we will be approving the entire project without debating it. And I think it would be fair and transparent, really, for the public to wait until we've given it a full airing and a discussion on its own merits. So I would move to remove that line item from the capital improvement plan for the sake of then handling it as a separate entity.
What's the item number of that, Supervisor Hanson?
We have project number 10105.
Supervisor Burning?
So that is on the 2023 side. That's not us approving it. We can't approve anything to move forward. So how is this amendment play out? It's kind of a nothing, isn't it?
So the way we utilize the 5-year KIP plan is the first year, the 2022 year that you're approving, and you're approving the funding, how I'm going to fund those projects, that's going to become a part of the budget document. That's the year that's important. Years 23 through 26, those are projects we're going to continue working on and planning on. If you want to remove a project for that, I tell the staff to stop working on it because it does not have the support of the county board. So that's how we use the 5-year plan. First year is funding, the rest of the years are staff continuing to progress towards those projects.
Follow up on my inquiry, does Supervisor Hanson's amendment then make it so that we have to create a separate item to discuss? Or does it completely take this off the docket and then we have to start over? So I guess I'd like some clarification on that before voting on this. or before even asking, well, I guess, this is an inquiry. Is this now in discussion? Corp Counsel, am I?
We need a second first. Do we have a
Okay.
second to that motion? Supervisor Achterhoff, okay.
Right, my
Now-
intention, if you'll allow, my intention is that this does not stop the progress on the project. It's just that it takes it from the capital improvement process, it removes it from this list, because voting on this with this on the list gives it tacit approval. The project needs to be debated and given full transparency for the public on its own, not approved as part of the capital improvement plan. And this way, you still have a building committee, you've had to go ahead for that committee from the county board. That's plenty of approval for the continuing of the process. But until we have had the chance to debate and approve the project, I would prefer not to see it approved with the capital improvement plan.
Corp Counsel?
In order to approve a project like this, which will require bonding, the county board has to vote affirmatively and get 15 votes. So I view with Administrator Witt's explanation as the purpose of projects of 23 and beyond is that if by removing it from the list, we're going to stop work on it.
Supervisor Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may ask, so I'm somewhat new to the process of how this stuff works at the county level. So my understanding is this amount of money that we would be including in the KIP is earmarking those funds, or it is committing to spend those funds? Which is it? Or is it simply setting aside as a plan that this is what we plan to do, and then we will have checkpoints along the way? Because I think at this point, I agree with Supervisor Hanson, I don't feel like I have a full enough understanding of what the options are that we're talking about, or that we've had enough public input, frankly, on what we're talking about doing.
Yeah, it's not spending the funds, it's not earmarking the funds, it's really a plan of how we would use future funds. So I try to spell out a 5-year plan of revenues that would come in, and in that case, it would be a bond issue in order to cover a project that large. So it's just a plan. And again, we're just using the 5-year plan as support for things that you want staff to spend time working on. And if you don't want a project worked on, if there's a parks project or a government center project you don't want to see, by all means, vote on it, take it off the list, and we will stop investing staff time in those projects.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cook?
Thank you. I'd like to see this remain on our capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan is a process, and if we're talking about transparency, this is how the county as a whole, plans on a standard process for projects like this, for future large projects. And this is where folks can take a look and say, okay, this is what the county has been considering, and this is what their 5-year plan is. So I see this, keeping the project in this CIP as very transparent. We're not approving any money tonight for this project. I'm fully expecting we're going to have a lot of discussion about the money. There'll be plenty of opportunity for public input, how we're going to fund it. We're not approving $87 million tonight, so I would like to keep it here instead of moving it into a separate process, which I think actually could be more confusing for the public, and instead of keeping it in our standard process of planning for projects like this.
Supervisor Achterhoff?
I just have, did we have the nursing home and the highway building in the KIP before we did them, or did we do those all separately? I think I was assuming that they were separate, and that's why this should, what is the difference between those two and the government edition?
Better planning?
Maybe.
So the KIP was started in 2014. The nursing home was started construction in like 2015, so that probably predated the KIP. The highway facility, that came up so quickly and was approved that it never went through the 5-year review process like we are now. So I try to hold the departments to a higher standard now, where we want to see those projects multiple years out so that we can put the correct amount of planning resources into them.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think probably everybody's clear on what the alternatives are here, so we have a motion to remove item number 10105 from the KIP project.
I would
So,
like a clarification.
Uh,
So if we vote on this amendment, and if it passes, it comes off the list? Completely off the list?
That's correct, yes.
And then how would we bring it back up?
Probably wouldn't, I guess, wouldn't it? Would be to be determined. Okay, so then just to clarify, if you vote against this motion, the project remains on the KIP and nothing changes there. Everybody clear on that? I guess we're ready to vote then. Okay, it fails with 2 yes votes only. So now we'll move to the main motion again, the KIP project, and I think we've probably had sufficient discussion on that. So we'll vote on that at this time.
If we say yes, what are we?
We're approving the KIP as, yeah.
So when you approve this, KIP, really, what we're doing is we're building the pieces of the budget. You still technically will be voting again on November 2nd on the full budget that this will be a piece of. But what we try to do is make sure that these bigger, sometimes more controversial pieces are hashed out ahead of time so that we don't get to the last day at the public hearing and we're talking about all these smaller details.
Oh, just verification that we're only approving the expenditures for the year '22 at this point, and that's not even definite yet. We're not approving any other expenditures. Right,
Correct.
right, but just making sure that, yeah.
Okay, we'll vote. Carries, thank you. Okay, next item then will be a resolution updating Sancri County wage grid. Do I have a motion for that to the floor? Supervisor Long, second by Supervisor Ard. Discussion?
We might want to have a little bit of explanation on this one. I know a lot of the items tonight were fairly routine, like illegal taxes. That's, it's an annual resolution. So the wage grid, we're doing a couple of things with the wage grid. So I wanted to explain the reasoning behind the changes. The first thing that we're doing is we're adjusting the wage grid to stay market competitive. We've done this twice before where we've taken the bottom step off the grid and we've added a step at the top of the grid. So one of the options when we don't have a COLA adjustment to the grid, raising the whole grid up, is that you can slide the grid. It'll have the same effect that it keeps the grid market competitive with increasing wages without increasing the employees' individual wages. They only get the increase through a step. So that's one of the tools that we use to keep our system competitive. So we take the bottom step off, we add a step on the end. So that's one of the things that we're doing. With that, we're shifting the market step from 6 to 8. We haven't moved that market step before, but since this is the third time we've taken the bottom step off, we're going to slide that market step up to 8. which would be about the appropriate place, looking at a couple of the comparable positions when we analyze where the market rate is. And what that does is that gives sort of a hiring point for managers. If you have a lot more experience, you'd expect to see somebody below that. If you have a lot less experience, you'd expect to see someone below that rate. So that's how we use the market rate. And then finally, what we're doing is we're eliminating some of the steps that fall below $15. So one of the things that we found this past summer was we had a hard time hiring seasonal help in the highway department and the parks department specifically. And what we had to do is we had to go all the way to the top of our scale, which was at 15, to hire anybody, to have enough flag holders on highway construction projects in order to operate for the year. So one of the things that we did was we increased that top bar for the seasonal employees with a starting wage rate at $15. So we have a higher cost now for our seasonals, but we're going to be more competitive with the market. I drove by Taco John's and they start at $14 an hour. And in fairness to the other lower steps on our grid that had some below $15, I eliminated any step on our grid system that was below $15 so that a regular full-time CNA wasn't making $14.60 an hour when we were hiring seasonal employees at $15 an hour. So those are the things that I did to the grid to make it more competitive, to maintain some equity for the employees, and to move our pay system forward. So again, this is one of the pieces that go into the budget. The wage grid is part of the budget. So we want to make sure that I have an understanding of your expectations and your level of approval for these items as we're finalizing the budget, so I can build that in and know that when we get to the November meeting, some of these details have been worked out.
Supervisor Osnes?
Ken, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask, but when is the last time that we've done an updated study on the original McGrath study on how we compare with everybody else in our particular area?
Yeah, I believe it was in 2019 that we did that. Yeah, so it's only been a couple of years, so about every 4 years roughly. So we're another year or two off, but we'll do that again coming up.
Other questions or comments? Guess we're ready to vote. Resolution carries. Thank you. Annual department reports. County Library Planning Committee report.
Set up.
Right? Are you going to be hard on me?
Get it going. Give it a second to read it.
I'll do a brief introduction, or you're going to.
Sure, why don't you go ahead?
We're getting a quick video to play. I am Monica Lavold. I am the director of the New Richmond Public Library, and I made a little presentation for you on the state of libraries right now.
You ready?
Welcome to the State of St. Croix County Libraries 2021. St. Croix County envisions library services that ensure all residents have the opportunity and high-quality resources to read, engage, work, create, and learn. This is our mission statement. Libraries in the time of COVID have had to learn to become flexible, to learn new things, and to completely change our services and the way we see our role in the community. We did this by uncovering new adaptability and flexibility, by digging into our creativity and innovation, and by being responsive to communities. We went outside for story times, for crafts, for large events, for curbside pickup. We even partnered with organizations that helped make the outside more beautiful by building birdhouses and being kind to our world. The heart of what we do is for the community, by the community. All of us are about community. Whether this means partnering with larger community events or creating a chance for community members to stop inside our library and visit with staff. We have programs, we have events, we even do outreach to organizations in our communities. We partner with all sorts of community partners. We partner with schools, we partner with parks, we partner with workforce development organizations. Anywhere we see a need and can make a difference in our community, libraries partner. We bring people together. This partnership creates opportunities to create togetherness, whether that's celebrations, calling in performers, or using our library spaces in flexible and innovative ways to create connection among our patrons. This is called social infrastructure. Libraries build it, and it makes us more healthy, more resilient. We build it through our programs, our partnerships, and our spaces. We create connection in all sorts of flexible ways. Flexible and innovative programming that can be done on your own time, in your own way. We create spaces that allow people to interact with the library, to interact with library materials and each other. We bridge technology divide and help people connect. We do this through checking out of Wi-Fi hotspots at every St. Croix County library. We do this by taking our programs and making them virtual and available and accessible. And we do this by making Chromebooks, laptops, and all sorts of devices available to any patron. Eric Kleinenberg is the author of a book called Palaces for the People, and he highlights how powerful libraries are in their inclusivity and the way they foster social cohesion. This is who we are. Baldwin Public Library, Deer Park Public Library, Glenwood City Public Library, Hammond Community Library, Hudson Area Public Library, Friday Memorial Library in New Richmond, Hazel Mackin Community Library in Roberts, River Falls Public Library, Somerset Public Library, Spring Valley Public Library, and Woodville Community Library.
Thank you. That's really the whole presentation, but I am available if you have questions about anything libraries are doing.
Questions or comments? Thank you. Oh, Osnes?
Just a quick question, and I don't know, Monica, if you want to take it, or maybe Paul can, but as we all know, we had a sad thing happen up here in Hudson a few weeks ago with the bad storm, and the Hudson Library is hit extremely, extremely hard, and I don't know if either one of you can give us an update on just where they're at yet. I know, Paul, you chair the board, so.
I mean, I can talk a little, you might know more, but I actually had dinner with Shelley a couple weeks ago. Shelley is the director of the Hudson Public Library. Maybe it was even last week. The time sure flies. They are doing tremendously well in recovering, but they are going to take quite a long time before they're able to be fully back to operations. My understanding is the entire front facade of the Hudson Library will need to be replaced, and they may not even be able to begin construction until May because of back ordering on windows. All of those are custom windows on the front of the Hudson Library. We have reached out to Hudson, and actually some of the local area libraries have started to brainstorm ways we can help with materials handling, offering any sort of pickup at other area libraries nearby. Hudson is, to my knowledge, doing full curbside services, and they are doing programming. They've been able to use some other facilities in the community that have reached out and partnered. So I believe they're doing story time at the Phipps. Does that sound right? Maybe? A few places, and they are doing some of the pictures you saw in that. They use a lot of outdoor space, and so some of the pictures were from Hudson doing programs right along the Riverwalk there. They do use park area as well, so they're being really creative in being able to still operate a library with the doors mostly closed to the public, and I suspect that that will continue for quite some time.
Go ahead.
So we're a few weeks out from letting the public in, mostly because of the glass that was all over the place, and it has to be completely. So you got to deconstruct the bookshelves and then move that. And with our structural issues, you can't just move it over and pile it into a spot. So that is an issue. You are correct in that. We won't have windows on the front until at least May, so that'll take some time. The landscaping is one area that our insurance is not going to cover full to redo that. So there's that. I know that we are trying to do curbside as much as possible, but it'll be a while before patrons can go in there, and because of labor shortages and other things we're trying to figure out, like, we still don't have a solid timetable, so.
Other questions, comments? Supervisor Osnes?
Well, and to our good folks at the, in Hudson and the Hudson Public Library, I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of folks across the entire county, and our thoughts and our prayers are with you guys right from the get-go until we can get everybody back in there. Any help that you guys need, don't be afraid to ask, because we're there for you. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, next item then would be St. Croix County Fair Association annual report. Gail Meyer.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and guests. My name is Gail Meyer, and I'm president of the St. Croix County Fair Board. I'm pleased to be here this evening to tell you a little bit about the St. Croix County Fair. Hopefully, you all received your copy of the official annual report that was submitted, and it did include a little bit of a visual recap of recent fair highlights and things that have been going on at the fairgrounds. After my talk, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. But tonight, I'd like to share some highlights of the 2021 St. Croix County Fair. First of all, after having to postpone the 2020 fair. We were very much delighted to bring it back in 2021, and boy, did we bring it back. In fact, it went so well that vendors were running out of food, the parking lots were full to overflowing, and the concessions and carnival ride sales were the best that they have ever been in my experience. The theme this year was moving and grooving at the St. Croix County Fair, and it was a lot of fun where all things moo were prominent, especially with the road signs throughout the county and the displays that were on the fairgrounds. And if you didn't know, the St. Croix County Fair is a free fair. We do not charge admission to the exhibit buildings, the barns, the show arenas, or Croix Court, or the Pavilion of Entertainment. And we are one of the very few fairs in the state that do not charge admission. Exhibits were down a little bit this year, partly because people were unsure of the COVID and if we were even going to have a fair. But we still had 683 exhibitors from 4-H, FFA, and other youth organizations, open class and senior citizens and school exhibits that brought in 8,237 entries to the fair. Of those entries, we paid out $10,295 in premiums. And it's interesting to note that while one would associate the fair with being agriculturally related, a lot of those exhibits were youth in cultural arts and photography that brought in over 800 exhibits. And our open class, ladies and gentlemen, 51 individuals contributed 485 exhibits in flowers and houseplants and cultural arts. And so as you can tell, the fair is not just cattle and crops. For our visitors, the weather was great this year. There was a good showing for the county employee picnic that was held on Thursday evening, and it was great to see so many of you, of course, at the fair. Over the 5 days of the fair, hundreds of visitors enjoyed the exhibits, watching the entertainment, and of course, fabulous fair food. Some of the important updates that I want to share with you is that our livestock barn was completed, and it has a new sound system and a new wash rack, and the horse barn as well as the old wash rack have been completed and updated. We did some electrical work, new service to the beef barn. We added 2 baby changing stations to some of the restrooms, and our food stand that's used by the 4-H'ers received an exterior facelift. We did add some new contests this year. We started a diaper dash for babies and toddlers. We had the Super Pie Exhibitor Contest, where people could enter their pies, and the winner was selected to go to the Wisconsin State Fair. New entertainment included Monty's Traveling Reptile Show, and a highlight for visitors was also the Fallen Hero Memorial exhibit. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it was really pretty spectacular. I'm really excited to share with you an event that is happening tomorrow at the fairgrounds, actually. It is the first annual Build My Future Wisconsin Construction and Career Day and Industry Showcase. Sponsored by the St. Croix County Home Builders Association, the Build My Future Wisconsin is going to give students an opportunity to spend the day in the construction industry through interactive showcase. There'll be students from about 18 schools, plus homeschool students, and some as far away as Mosinee, Wisconsin, which is about 2.5 hours away. They'll have approximately 5 hours of activities provided by at least 40 industry partners that's going to show students what it's like to work on the job. Student activities will include educational displays, equipment operations, and learning labs. And those learning labs will have hands-on construction industry practices for them, such as framing, pouring concrete, installing roofing and siding, driving heavy equipment, laying bricks, and driving simulators, and much more. So we're very, very excited about that. Some of our goals for 2020 are to add more electrical upgrades to our camping, purchase some laptop computers to help the scanning of judging results. We want to install some LED lighting photo sills on our building exteriors and renovate the resurface of the open class building. We'd like to be able to move forward with the construction of the safe room and emergency shelter that was mentioned earlier in the West Central Regional Planning presentation. An application for an extension for that is in progress right now. Planning for the fair is a year-round task, even though many people don't know this. We are primarily a volunteer organization without a working office or a working staff, and hundreds of hours are spent taking care of this business. Many people also don't know is that we do not do it alone. There's so many people that do contribute in so many ways to the success of this great community event. A sincere thank you goes out to our county supervisors, representatives, Judy Achterhoff and Greg Telejohn, who attend almost all of our meetings and are actually a very genuine asset to our board. I want to give you a very special thank you to the entire county board, all of you, for your continued support. It's greatly appreciated, and it validates the significance and impact that the agricultural industry has here in St. Croix County with your support. If you did not know, all across the state, 72 county fairs do play a vital role in the economy, society, and heritage of our rural communities. As agriculture is the backbone of our economic system, the county fair is the backbone of promoting the agriculture experience in our community. The fair offers visitors the opportunity to see, hear, taste, touch, and feel, smell the richness and the variety of what our county has to offer through teaching and learning experiences that are enjoyable for all ages. So from Legos to livestock, the fair does offer something for everyone. In closing, I'd like to strongly encourage each and every one of you to attend the St. Croix County Fair to see for yourself how the tradition of agriculture is very much alive in St. Croix County. And I want to thank those of you who did stop by this year to say hi. It was very, very good to see you, and I appreciate that. Please consider what you might like to exhibit at the 22 St. Croix County Fair and save the date for July 20th through the 24th. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Supervisor Telejohn.
Yes, I'd like to commend the Fair Board and all the many hours of volunteer work that goes into planning the fair. After attending the meetings, it's amazing how many hours are put in to put that fair on. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Supervisor Achterhoff.
I'm going to say the same thing that Supervisor Telejohn said. It's incredible how many skilled, knowledgeable, volunteer hours and people it takes to put on the fair, and it's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also from the board.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Next, we'll have the UW Extension Annual Department Report. Kristen Bruder.
Good evening. My name is actually Carrie Weiss. I'm your community development educator with St. Croix County, but Kristen had to be elsewhere tonight, so we wanted to still be present here, and so I thank you for having us. I'm going to basically just give a few high points and then field any questions, because I know Kristen will be back in the near future, and hopefully she can address any concerns or questions that you have. But basically, the key is this 2020, for this report year that you are looking at, I hope everyone was able to receive that report. It was a very difficult year, obviously, for many folks. In Extension, it was no different. As an organization that prides itself to go amongst people, to collaborate and partner with people in the field, we had to make a huge pivot to address COVID and find different ways to do our work and programming. However, we did so to the best of our abilities and very effectively and very efficiently. And the silver lining is it taught us that we could. And so ultimately now I think that we are better equipped to work with people in many different modalities and fashions. That said, we're also very grateful that St. Croix County has created their strategic plan, and we're working hard for future to align with that plan. And I think ultimately that's all I had to say. If you had any questions, I'd like to take those or take those back to Kristen as well.
Questions? Comments? Thank you. The next item then would be Community Development Annual Report. Helen Denzer.
If you could slide down a few more slides and just kind of follow along. I'm going to do a few highlights also. Thank you, Community Development Director, and I will obviously take any questions you have as I get to the end. So starting out with page, I think if you kind of jump down a little. There, right there. So you've heard a lot from everybody, but the pandemic was a big change. And we also had a lot of people who had to make a lot of adjustments and accommodate it. Our Hudson office was open every single day that the county was open. 3 to 5 people were in the office every day. We were all doing permits, inspections. I was in, other than 2 weeks, I was in at least 2 days every week. We basically wanted to stay ahead. Despite the pandemic, sanitary systems continued to go in, and so did a lot of other activity continue to go on. We did make a lot of adjustments in how we did work assignments. We had every single person working from home, at least part-time, rotating people through. Our whole staff and our whole team was very proud of the fact that we were able to not only get everybody working from home, everybody was full-time from home except 1 or 2 people who had some personal reasons why they weren't able to work full-time. And we felt very good about that. We accomplished a lot despite the situation. For those who are like reception type people, that kind of thing, and weren't able to be in the office, we still found projects, scanning projects and other things related to files and that kind of stuff. So every single person was putting in 40 hours a week, just about, except I said 2 people. So very proud of that out of our 30-some people. One of the biggest impacts, of course, was on our ways of communicating. We did find that for our parks, there was a huge increase in attendance in 2020, almost to the point where things were crazy, crazy busy people, angry, frustrated, happy, sad, thrilled. We got comments galore from people who were like, I couldn't have made it without this, without the parks. I couldn't have survived. I had to get out. They were a lifesaver to people who were so needed even more. And it was just really amazing. We did a lot of things that we figured out really quickly, like paying for and putting in hand washing stations at all our playgrounds, because we figured that kids were not going to stay off those playgrounds regardless of what we said. So we dealt with it in the best way we could. And we didn't try to tape things off like other people did. We tried to be proactive. Very, very popular. We had a lot of people who complimented us for how we handled things. Our staff were extremely stressed. I mean, we're talking a lot more people, and a lot of people from Minnesota, and a lot of people from other locations. But yet they handled it, and I was very proud of them. The attendance wasn't the only thing. Camping was way up. Watercraft rentals were up. Public interest in everything we were doing was up. It did negatively impact, the pandemic did, our ag producers, our ag staff. They just weren't able to go out and meet with people. Our numbers went down, our activities went down. And you may look at our reports and say, it looks pretty good, and it does. It looks very good, because they just had a lot harder time getting producers to meet with them and talk about things. There was also a lot of challenge with new employees. We're used to doing a lot of on-the-job training. It was very hard. And we're used to sending people to a variety of activities and training, and many of them were canceled. So we did as much online as we possibly could. And we also felt like we learned a lot. We found a lot of new social media opportunities, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. And we also found a lot of new ways to meet with people and make things happen with a lot of the online meetings. So positive and negative. We had people who, as soon as we were letting people come back in June last year, they were back in the office. They hated working from home. We also had people who loved it, and they stayed out as much as they possibly could all year, and that was fine. We were able to be very flexible and work with them, except for those people who had to be there to meet with the public. One thing that we're very proud of is during the actual quarantine part, came our annual tree sale. We had already had record tree sales, and then the following year, during 2020, it went even higher. Or during 2020, 2021, this year was actually the biggest. But the tree sale, we were like, what are we going to do? Cancel, return all that money, figure it out. At that point, it was masks for everybody, 6-foot separation. How are we going to actually deliver these trees? We came up with a plan, having people stay in their cars the whole time, hold up numbers. We sent people emails, had everything figured out, and we delivered the trees, and it went so well. We're incorporating it permanently into some of our changes of how we operate, because people loved it. They were so happy to get their trees. I can't explain to you the joy that people had to get their trees, their plants, and everything. So we're actually very proud that we were able to figure that out in a very short time. And as it says, we sold over 21,000 trees, shrubs, and native prairie plants. Another important thing we did is we continued to hold those nitrate screening clinics, which have become very popular in 2020. And if we have a little chart in there at the bottom that really shows you how people came from every community in St. Croix County. I was very happy to see that. The numbers for this year are up, and we're not done. Going on, a couple points on the next page, that overall our expenses were under budget and our revenues were over budget. So very proud of that. Some of that was contributed by our parks revenues, which were way up, but at the same time, some of our other things like the land and water situation, our revenue from working with farmers was down. So all balanced out. On the next page after that, some issues and concerns. I just point out that, again, we are trying to keep up with ordinance administration. I know that as part of the strategic planning, enforcement is really a big issue. We are trying, but we've had a lot of turnover. People are leaving our department for very significant raises, $5,000 to $10,000 more, even with DNR, not just the private sector. So when you have all new people and you're constantly retraining people and they're leaving after 6 months, a year, it's very hard to have them actually be able to do the same volume of work as we were able to do in the past. So that's why we keep asking for more help. So the same was true also with our park staff. It also required a lot more hours of people working. We did go over budget in our seasonals because we had to have them on a lot more with the volume of people that were at our parks. I'd like to call attention on the bottom of this page. One of the things we had to change was how we did our public engagement for our project we're working on now, our master planning project for our new property that's just north of Hudson here on the St. Croix River. We had said a few years ago in one of our reports that we had the most phenomenal public input ever when we did our bike ped plan. This project put that completely to shame. We had numbers that were just unbelievable. Social media had reached over 46,000 people. We had nearly 9,000 people engaged with all of our online materials that was put out not only by our staff but also by our consultants. Everything was tracked. We sent out a mailing, direct mailing to 590 landowners who would be right in the area where this property is. We had 6 stakeholder meetings. We met with elected officials and interest groups. And in the end, we had 647 responses from an online survey, 3,412 site visits to our interactive mapping tool. It was just phenomenal. And we are pretty sure, based on our ability to check location, that 77% of all that feedback, all of it, came from St. Croix County residents. So phenomenal amount of input, and really proud of the fact that we were able to reach that many people on this project, and we hope to continue to do these kind of outreach efforts as we go forward with other projects. On the next page, I just point out too, in addition to that, we really tried to grow our Facebook page. And we did. We went from 1,000 to almost 4,000 people, a 250% increase in followers during 2020. I suppose those people stuck at home really started looking at things. But the same was true with our resource management page, because that first one that I mentioned is parks. The resource management page, which is recycling and other activities we do, increased by 50%. So again, phenomenal numbers. That one post you can see there on the left-hand side, if you scroll down, Cindy, really made us feel pretty good because that was seen by over 30,000 people, and over 6,000 people commented, did something, shared it, and so that was pretty amazing. That drew a lot of attention because there was actually a donated photo from an individual who would send me a note or send a comment just about every week about how proud he was of that beautiful new flag pole and the memorial, the Blue Star Memorial that was put in. So very, very happy with that and very happy with the impact we were able to make with the Loop Trail. Another important thing is the Healthier Together project that we've partnered with the Healthier Together program. It's the library backpack program. So we created a special pass that will be good for 2 years that we've put into those. This is the second year we've done it. We've also did it in 2020. And basically trying to support people able to get out to the parks free of charge as much as possible in Pierce and St. Croix counties. So keep going. I know I don't want a very long report, but I think there's a lot of important things that were done in 2020. Next page, I just wanted to point out we do a lot of great things with our GIS and mapping, but maybe sometimes people don't realize how much we work with other groups. The Western Wisconsin Realtors presentation, the fact that we continue to do our aerial photography in various types, and that is always given out at cost to all the development agencies in the county, whether it's orthophotography or LiDAR or any other kind. The fact that we helped public health, and I know there's a much more a nicer dashboard now, but when they first needed it, we were there helping them and creating that dashboard update every day during the initial stages of the pandemic. We worked with DNR to clean up our well location data and provide greater accuracy, which is a really great thing for people looking up information, looking at buying houses. We've worked with the Highway Department on several projects, including specifically just for them, plow beat mats, assign inventory, and traffic counts. And they've helped us with things that we're doing, so including you'll see later where we did some real improvements at Bass Lake boat landing in order to prevent runoff into the lake. Another big project maybe people don't realize is we work on a continuous weekly basis with emergency services with our 911 center. We're always providing updates in the addressing, and in this past they started it in 2020, but this year in 2021, we've been there right with them the whole time, updating and revising information and data layers and mapping for the new NG 911 database so that they can respond to calls in a more appropriate manner. And we also create a lot of great things like our bike ped story map and our citizen groundwater monitoring story map, things that are easy for the citizens to understand and look up. So those are just a few. I'm going to keep going. Next page, just a couple of highlights. The Transportation Alternatives Grant that we received, which will allow us to create an off-road bike trail in the first of 3 phases along the State Highway 35 from North Hudson to our new property, Eckert Blufflands, is a pretty big deal. It's an 80% grant. The county's only paying 20%. And we will continue applying for more grants to continue the next phase, which will get us to Willow River State Park, and after that, the final phase, which will get us all the way to the Loop Trail. So by getting those 80% grants, I think we're really doing a huge investment for the county at a very low price. Moving to the next page, I'd just like to remind everyone, I know you heard about this more than once, but we're very proud of the new Chapter 15 zoning ordinance we were able to create, and the fact that 17 of 21 towns, including the town of Katy, which was previously unzoned, all decided to adopt and stay in county zoning. We did have one town of St. Joe, that decided to move on, but we're very proud of the assistance we were able to give them, and I have no problem with it. I think it's great. Hopefully we can continue to have a great working relationship. I'd also just like to call your attention to the map You know, we have a lot of development in St. Croix County, but we also have a lot of unimproved lots waiting for development. The map down there shows that as of 2020, we had over 2,000 lots, and that's a lot of lots. Then there was enough, that's enough for about 4 years of development, although every year we constantly have more. So I just thought that was really interesting. You can see the dispersal of those lots and where they're located. They're in all communities, rural, unincorporated communities of St. Croix County. So I'll jump you forward a couple of pages. I just wanted to call attention to the maps, the resource management maps on page 10 of our report. What's really important about this is that our staff took the time, partly because of the pandemic, but they were going to do it anyway, to create a complete database of every single cost share program we've done for all the different types of agricultural practices and shoreland practices that we've done for the past 20 years. And we have that data now, we can look it up. And it's interesting to note, and I think very interesting to note, that not only will it assist us with our reporting, which we have to do to federal and state agencies, and our tracking practices and making sure that there isn't duplication of on the part of various property owners of what they're doing with their land, duplication in terms of manure storage, or excuse me, manure application, but also what I think is even more important is the state of Wisconsin is trying to create something just like this now for the whole state, and we've already got it done. So, very proud of St. Croix County for always being a little bit ahead of the game. I'm going to jump you ahead because I don't want to take too long. There's a lot of great information in here about our recycling program and our environmental education efforts, which were both cut back due to COVID. One thing about recycling is we did only hold, it might have jumped out at you that for 2020, everything was way down. It's because we decreased from 2 events to 1. That was partly due to the pandemic and partly due to costs. So we did decrease. It is unfortunate, and this year we are only going to have 1 event this year, also due to cost. We are trying to address that in terms of fees, but and I know the public isn't that happy. But the good news is there is a private vendor now in Somerset area that is offering services for a fee of taking hazardous waste. Just FYI, the Household Hazardous Waste Clean Sweep Collection Program for this year is this Thursday and Friday out at the highway shop on US Highway 12 and just outside of Hudson, and it will be Thursday from noon to 5, and Friday the businesses are in the morning, but in the afternoon, again, from noon to 5:30 will be the public. So let's see, jumping now to parks. A couple of important things I thought I would share. If you look at our chart on daily and annual park passes, we had, again, record numbers, about 8,000 daily passes and about 5,000 annuals. When we take those numbers and take an average number of people, which we tried to estimate very low, and an average number of visits for the annual passes, we come up with about 64,000 people visited St. Croix County parks last year. And that would only be those who actually needed to have a pass. That would not include all the parks we have, and there are quite a few that we don't check on that. We don't require people to submit or have a pass to get in. So that's pretty amazing. Also, attendance last year, that number is up about 51% over the previous year. Our Watercraft Rentals, which we do track very closely, were up 80% over the previous year. 6,157 watercraft rentals, and that's basically our paddle boards, kayaks, canoes, paddle boats, etc. Camping was up, and all of these things I think are related somewhat to the pandemic, but if you look at the charts, you can see that generally speaking, it depends on weather a bit, but they've been going up, up, up. And I also would point out real specifically, I guess this is was going to be in here anyway, I already had it in here, it says it in here, but the bottom chart that talks about our camper unit days, we've tracked camper unit days all the way back to the day that the Glen Hills Campground first opened in 1972. And what I think is important, and Dan Hansen, Supervisor Hansen mentioned this in our earlier discussion tonight, that about since 2015, 16, 17, 18, our camping has gone up, up, up. And I personally feel that you can attribute it right back to the improvements that we do at Glen Hills. We have, in that time frame, we've added an online reservation system, the new shower restroom building. We've improved the lighting, made repairs, painted a lot more than was done in the past. All those things have increased that activity. And basically, our highest number of attendance for camping have been in 16, 19, and 20 in the history of the park. So that's pretty impressive. And I'd just like to read you, just Monday, yesterday, this is one of the emails we got from a satisfied camper. Hello, I wanted to reach out to commend the phenomenal and friendly staff that we spoke to this weekend. I reserved the Picnic Point Campground, which is a non-electric tents-only campground, to propose to my girlfriend on the lake. The young lady at the day use booth was so amazing and went out of her way to make sure our canoe was cleaned before we went out. You guys run such an awesome campground, and we will be returning every year. I have photos of the event that showcases the beautiful colors of the lake, and we'd be glad to share these for you guys to use. I cannot thank you enough. You guys rock. So I just hope you understand that when we make these improvements, we're not just increasing attendance by a few camper cabins or one thing here and there. We're making people happier because we're giving people a better looking facility, and they go there. The staff have told me a couple examples. Our brand new shower restroom facility with flush toilets. We've had the same old shower restroom facility since 1972 in the main campground. People get in their vehicles, and there's a stream of cars that go from, you have to literally get out and go out on the road to drive to the other side of the campground, the park, in order to use the new building. And every night during the camping, right, starting about 5 o'clock, a stream of people that drive over there to use the new facilities to shower and clean up after a day on the lake, in the water, fishing, whatever. Another thing, our first camper cabin got moved there, and there's a few highlights about that in the next few pages. But just a week and a half ago, one of our staff, the one person who runs, Travis, who runs Glen Hills, said, how soon is the second camper cabin moving out there? And we hope to have it moved out the first week in November. He said, thank God. He said, I get 10 calls a day asking, when is the second camper cabin going to be available? And he wasn't making that up. Travis doesn't exaggerate very much. So I just think that if you look at these other pictures and what we've been doing, even a couple of projects we did, the only two I'll highlight on this page, is last year's flooding in the midst of the pandemic was pretty horrendous. And we are very thankful. The Highway Department was great to work with, really helped us out. But even before that, we had excessive frost heaving and a pretty miserable fishing opener at Pine Lake. Heard from Supervisor Anderson about that. And so we went in and we not only fixed it up, but we also added more parking for boats and for trailers and vehicles. And we tried to put in better surfacing with more recycled asphalt. And so it's just about constantly improving the facilities to get more people to feel like this is a quality park system that they want to attend. And the same was with the Wildwood Trail. We had so many people upset because the Wildwood Trail, parts of it were closed after the flooding, and it washed out pretty badly. Got that fixed, got people back on it. It's not got the attendance we'd like to see, but it will. We're going to keep working on it. So next page just shows you some wonderful highlights of the various things our staff do, all the nice improvements we try to make, our goals for the upcoming year, which I won't tap into. I'll let you ask me questions. But last page, I like to have some citizen highlights. There's that Blue Star marker dedication. A very miserable day, October 23rd was. I was there. And but there were some very proud ladies, garden clubs from around St. Croix County, New Richmond and Somerset area mostly, who had put that in, raised the money, and were very proud of that Blue Star marker that they were able to put in at that loop trail. And also another group of people who just this spring came out and worked really hard to improve the trails at Glen Hills. Our citizens love our parks. So, questions?
Seeing
Thank you.
none, I guess. Oh, Supervisor Ackerhut?
This isn't a question, but it's just, I mean, we talked about the parks a lot, because that seems to be financially on everybody's mind, but community development has done a lot more, especially in Emerald with the water situation and in other places. They do an incredible amount, and a lot of that is time controlled. They have a limited amount of time to get a lot of stuff done. And with the staff turnover and more requirements, it's tough, and I commend the department for doing what they do.
Thank
And
you.
everybody that works there.
Thank you. I have a great staff, and they are amazing. Even when they're new and young, they're all they try really hard, so.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the request for future agenda items. Seeing none,
Nope, me.
Supervisor Ackerhut.
Broadband. It was supposed to be this month, but now it's next month, but hopefully it definitely will be next month.
Most definitely maybe.
Okay, so noted. Any others? Okay, and county clerk's correspondence?
I have no correspondence. I just want to remind you that next month's meeting starts at 8:30 in the morning. We're back to the morning meetings for the winter months.
You stole my thunder. Thank you. Okay, any other announcements? And don't forget Committee of the Whole on Monday. 8:30. Okay. Other than that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:51. Thank you all.